Still on the US, and President Trump has shown his chief of staff the door, replacing Mike Mulvaney, or Mick Mulvaney, a lawmaker and close ally Mike Meadows.
Mulvaney's exit was long predicted after he was seen to implicate Mr Trump in the impeachment saga, telling reporters an alleged quid pro quo with Ukraine happened all the time. He later withdrew the comments. Mike Meadows will now take the reins, known as a fellow Conservative and climate change denier, while Mulvaney has been relegated to a special US envoy to Northern Ireland. And for more on this story, we're joined by Alex Shephard from the New Republic. Hello to you, Alex. Plenty going on, but let's stick to the story about Mick Mulvaney. He becomes the fourth chief of staff in 3 years as the president looks towards re-election in November.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, this switch is happening right on time. The president has moved through chiefs of staff very quickly. His frustration with Mick Mulvaney has been well known going back several months. This transition, I think, has been planned for some time, although my understanding is also that it was precipitated by Mulvaney's decision to head to Las Vegas for a planned vacation during the coronavirus outbreak.
It was always going to happen, wasn't it? This was, the writing's been on the wall for this one.
Yeah, I think with Mulvaney in particular, the fit was never quite right, even though, at one point he had several different sort of short-term and temporary positions within the White House. Meadows and Trump have a sort of much stronger relationship. People are comparing him to Mike Pompeo. I think that's right. He's someone who's probably not going to stand in the president's way. He's known as someone who is a problem solver within Congress, at least on the Republican side, but he's never been in a position like this before, particularly during a crisis.
President Donald Trump toured the Atlantic-based Centres for Disease Control Prevention on Friday, your time, the White House signing that $8.3 billion emergency funding package. Alex, what is the mood like where you are in New York regarding coronavirus?
I think people are slowly waking up to the fact that this is not going away anytime soon. The state of emergency was declared here earlier today. There are now several U.S. states that have declared a state of emergency. We're not seeing any widespread panic buying, but I think people are starting to slowly realize that this is going to be here for the next several weeks, if not much longer. There's
been some ridiculous scenes here, and you've been watching down the line at our bulletin. Embarrassing, really, from an Australian perspective, of people fighting over toilet rolls in supermarkets. Is this making news over there?
Not as much, although I think people are watching how other countries are reacting, and I think it's rather dispiriting too, but you're seeing the same kinds of things everywhere where people are starting to panic early. The White House has certainly gone to great lengths to try to dampen this. I think in some ways that probably are maybe making the situation worse, though.
Let's talk about the week that was, Super Tuesday, of course, a very big outcome there. The comeback of all comebacks. Let's start with Joe Biden. He's truly, certainly in the race with Bernie Sanders. Who do you think would be a better fit in terms of the presidential campaign, in terms of Democrats?
Well, I think that there's a big question right now about that. I think Biden and Sanders have both wanted to have a head-to-head race for most of this contest. They're finally getting it. The question now, I think, is which one can convince voters that they are more electable? This is the sort of nebulous term that you hear from many voters when you go out. And I think Biden has clearly been winning that contest now that the race is narrowed. But Sanders is going to, I think, to have to change the tone of his campaign a little bit to settle into this one-on-one race.
It's Lazarus-like, isn't it? I mean, so many people, so many experts had Joe Biden, as we saw him running on the stage. They're dead in the water. The series, of course, around Bill Clinton was called The Comeback Kid. He's hardly a kid, Joe, but, this is extraordinary.
It is. I think, we certainly weren't predicting it a few weeks ago. He was finishing 4th and 5th in all the early contests. And it basically was South Carolina that saved him. It was Jim Clyburn's endorsement there, and then everyone has lined up behind him. The question with Biden is if he can keep this momentum. He started the race with a lot of endorsements. He started the race with a lot of money, and he immediately just started petering out. And I think voters took a look at him, particularly given his advanced age. He's 77, and they were slightly uneasy about him. But now I think what we're seeing is that they're more uneasy about Bernie Sanders, and that may just be where the race heads.
Elizabeth Warren has commented a couple of hours ago that she experienced sexism on every step of her campaign. We don't know who she's going to back, if anyone at all. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, in 2016, she didn't endorse either. She's always been a very savvy politician. She's in the Senate. She's pretty far to the left, which is a very clear agenda, particularly taking on corporate power and corruption. And she wants to figure out how she can best further that. I think, in the short term, there are certainly people in Bernie Sanders' camp that are very anxious to have her endorsed because she is a natural ally and has been for quite a while. But she, I think, is looking like many voters are and trying to determine who the winning horse will be. Right now, that certainly looks like Joe Biden. And I could see her waiting to endorse like she did 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think she's going to be a perfect foil for either one of them if they manage to wrestle a victory later on in the year. Well, Michael Bloomberg just sails off into the mansion back in New York, huh?
Well, he'll sell back with 500 million fewer dollars. Yeah, I think, his campaign, he's claiming certainly that he did what he wanted to do, which was, back the winning candidate or make sure that Bernie Sanders didn't win. I think that is a pretty rosy picture, especially given that he spent, nearly $600 million of his own money. He was humiliated in 2 debates. His record as mayor of New York, which I think people had mostly forgotten about, has been completely resurfaced. And yet he may very well be a very valuable political ally, given the amount of money that he's sunk into this race for Joe Biden.
So what next, Alex? Michigan and Idaho, they're holding their primaries March 10. Are the odds high, do you think, about this year's Democratic primaries being the end? Will it end in a brokered convention, do you think?
I think my bet would have been on a brokered convention before Super Tuesday. I think now, especially if Michigan goes for Biden, Michigan, of course, went to Bernie Sanders 4 years ago. But if Biden can win in Michigan and Florida, then I think the race looks very different. I think some of us who covered the last election are getting deja vu right now. Biden certainly looks like Hillary Clinton. Sanders certainly looks like Bernie Sanders 4 years ago. But if Biden wins Michigan, I think it could flip that script a little bit and make him the clear nominee heading into the convention.
I know people love framing markets and getting prices on who's the favourite. Donald Trump is a pretty short price favourite right at the moment.
Yeah, I think people are still figuring out what the race is going to look like, particularly in swing states. Biden and Sanders have done well in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania that Trump won in 2016, but this is going to be a long race. And both Democratic frontrunners have, I think, pretty clear weaknesses, I think, particularly surrounding their age and mental fitness. And I think that that's probably where this race is headed for the next few weeks.
And no more Pete Buttigieg, but he certainly did very well throughout the whole campaign.
Yeah, I think that, he changed his goals throughout the campaign. When he started it was clear that he just wanted to become a sort of national figure, and he would parlay that into something different. By the spring, it was clear that he was a possible presidential candidate. His endorsement, I think, was huge for Joe Biden, maybe not as important as Amy Klobuchar's, but still very important. And he's going to become a national figure for decades to come. He's only 38 years old.
Yeah, we won't see the end of him for a while. Yeah, more of Pete Buttigieg to come, no doubt. Alex Shephard, thank you so much for coming on board Weekend Edition. Always a pleasure to have you here this morning.
Thank you.